Romans chapter 1 verse 16. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. This is the scripture that I have read where Paul is writing to the church at Rome. He has a message that he wants to give to them, but he is telling them that I am not ashamed. What he is doing, he is drawing their attention to him so that they can study him, so that they can see the attitude that he has towards the gospel. So there are some people that we don't only listen to, but they model how we do things. Paul is modeling that when it comes to preaching the gospel of Christ, I am not ashamed. So to someone, it may seem as if he is bragging about what he is doing. But to the mature, it is a message that this is how I am supposed to work. So whenever a message is delivered, we have to understand that there are two components. There is what is said and there is the method. So some of us have good things, have profitable things that we want to say to people. But nyaya inofira pa method of how to tell what we want to tell people. Paul aigona kuvaudza kuti gospel harinyadzisi. Haufaniri kunyara when it comes to the gospel. But he chose a method that was acceptable because this was a Gentile church. He couldn't go direct. He had to go to take them through his life so that he can pass on a message. This is the problem that we have even in our marriages. Ma points nema facts atenge tichidurura anenge ari right. But the method of delivery defeats the whole purpose. When you want to encourage your wife to bath, you have to find a method to tell them that this is a good thing. So he is attracting them to a certain lifestyle because this is the gospel of Christ. The gospel means good news, which means it has to be attractive. So it has to be modeled. So he had to attract the Romans to preaching the gospel of Christ by showing them how it is done and also showing them how attractive it is. So kana kuri kunzuruda kuti vageze unongovaudza kuti kuri kupisa ukageza unotonhorerwa zuva rese ende neskini yako manakiro ayakaita ikazogezewa manheru inobva yaita uchi. What you are doing, you are telling them how attractive it is so that they can come to you. It's a delivery of your message. So he is showing them that I am not ashamed. So our Father has mandated us to go and teach. We are not going out there to scare people about hell. Hatisi kuudza vanhu kuti gehena rinopisa. But tiri kuvaudza manakiro akaita Jesu. Tiri kuvaudza manakiro akaita mu Creation Life Ministries. Tiri kuvaudza ma-advantages ekunamata. Because good news has to be attractive. It has to point out to things where people are attracted to. So Paul knew what he wanted to do, and he was very deliberate about the method of telling his message. I am not ashamed of the gospel. He is bringing out a very important concept. Kuti kana riri vhangeri raJesu harina nyadzi. I am not ashamed and you don't have to be ashamed of the gospel. So nyadzi dzinogona kuuya in different ways. The first thing we know, as the previous speaker has said, that Paul was opposed to this gospel. So anga ane history yaizikanwa. So kuzodzoka aita U10 zvanga zvine kamwe kakunyadzisa. Kuti hausiwe here waimbotaura kuti vanhu vari kudyirwa mari kuchechi. Why are you telling me that? But he was telling them that I am not ashamed, because I answer mamwe ma questions aiziva kuti they were going to come out. Kuti pakaurayiwa Stephen, you were there. So akatanga atovaudza kuti zvandiri kuita handina nyadzi. Ndairara kubhawa, but ike zvino ndakurara all night. Unofanira kutovaudza kuti handinyare because of what I am doing. History make you ashamed, but Paul is teaching us not to be ashamed. The second thing, pane kamwe kakunyadziswa kanogona kuitika if you are not sure about what you are doing. But Paul aiziva kuti when it comes to the gospel of Christ, it is not gambling. Handisi kuzviita kuti ndione kuti ndinobudirira here kana kuti handibudiriri. Handisi kuzviita kuti ndione kuti ndinopora here kana kuti handipori. He was sure that when it comes to the gospel of Christ, there will not come a day where people will call out a meeting and cancel him that we told you about this thing. You should have that confidence that you know that what I am doing, I am not going to be ashamed. I may not be driving today, but I know it's a matter of time before I drive. I may not be a landlord, but because of the gospel of Christ and my commitment to it, I know I am not going to be ashamed. I don't know kuti chivindi chei. Chekuti tinosapota mamwe matimu hatichatauri mazita. But tinoziva kuti matimu iwawo dzimwe nguva anogara achinodyiwa ikoko. Unenge une t-shirt latest yetimu yako yatisingatauri mazita. But you know kuti it's a 50-50 chance yekuti munodyiwa. But here we have a gospel that you know that the result is definite. But pane kamwe kakusikiza katinoita when it comes to the gospel. May God help you so that you can declare the gospel of God with confidence. Because you know that you are not going to be ashamed. As you know that you are going to build the house, you are sure that you are going to drive. You are sure that you are going to hold that baby, because you are not going to be ashamed because of the gospel of Christ. So it has to be submitted. When it comes to the gospel of Christ, you are not going to be ashamed. Zvinofana kunyorwa kuti ndiri ku festival of blessings, because you know that the blessing is coming. When you are coming out of this place, there is going to be evidence that is going to speak on your behalf that he was at the festival of blessings, because we know that we will not be put to shame. For it is the power of God unto salvation. I don't want to talk much about salvation because yazvamburudzwa. Pane mukuru akabva kuSaudi anga ane chimunya changa akatirongera kwemwedzi, so I'm not going to go there deep. So it is the power of God unto salvation. When it comes to salvation, it is a power play. There is power that is needed for the salvation of God, for the salvation of man. We have to understand that salvation comes in 3 dimensions. There is the past tense of salvation, which is justification, which is what happened on the cross. When Jesus died for us, we were delivered from the penalty of sin. So we know that it was done. nekuti Jesu akatofa kare. So we are no longer held accountable to the past sins as the previous presenter has presented. But we have to understand the power play that came in that past tense. Because Judas paitengesa Jesu angoti ari kuita chinhu chakanaka. Satan Jesu achiendesa pamuchinjikwa aifunga kuti ari kuwina. But the time that Jesus gave up his spirit and he died and his blood was spilled, it was finished. That's when he realized that he had participated in his downfall. So there is a power of God that confuses enemies, as it did on the cross. When they think that they are doing you harm, they are participating in your promotion. I speak for the same power to work in your life, that when they are fighting against you, they would not be knowing that they are setting you up for an elevation. Salvation also comes in the present tense, which is sanctification, which Paul writes to the Philippians that work out your salvation with power, with fear, and trembling. So this is a process where we continually become more and more like Christ. So we were saved and Jesus has already died. But we have a part to play by coming to church, by participating in programs, by coming to the F.O.B, because we are becoming more and more like Christ. And there is power that is needed to overcome the power of sin. So when it's sanctification, we are being delivered from the power of sin. And there is power that is required so that we become more and more, we become better and better as we are progressing in our walk with God. May I declare that same power can work in your life so that you can become better and better in your salvation. Then in the future, time but I'm just going to mention, when it comes in the future, it is glorification, where we are going to be delivered finally when Jesus comes, and our body will be taken away and be transformed so that we don't sin anymore and we live in a world that is free of sin, a world that is attractive. So the gospel, it has to be attractive. Thank you so much.
今天压下